Most people don't wake up thinking about blockchains. They think about rent, school fees, sending money, saving for something that actually matters. They want tools that work, not buzzwords. And yet money is changing under our feet. Markets are moving on chain. Software is doing more of what humans used to do. AI is starting to make decisions, execute tasks, and move value. If this is where finance is going, we need an infrastructure that is fast, open, safe, and simple to use at scale. That's the promise Cronos is trying to meet. Think about how the cloud changed the internet in the Web 2 era. Before the cloud, building anything at scale was slow and expensive. After the cloud, products could reach millions with speed and reliability. Cronos wants to be that kind of foundation for on-chain finance. A base layer where billions of people and the AI agents that increasingly act for them can trade, lend, pay, and build without hitting a wall of cost or complexity. The vision is clear: open, compliant, usable markets. Not just open for developers, but open for institutions and everyday users. Not just compliant on paper, but built to align with global standards so real businesses can participate. And not just usable for a niche group, but simple enough that the next wave of on-chain participants can step in without a learning curve that scares them off. How does Cronos aim to do that? By blending two worlds that usually live apart. On one side, Cronos is EVM compatible. That means developers who know Ethereum can bring their apps over without rewriting everything. On the other side, Cronos is built with the Cosmos SDK and speaks IBC, the Inter-Blockchain Communication Protocol. That breaks the silos. Assets and messages can move across chains, Ethereum, Cosmos, and more, without being trapped. Speed and cost matter too. The goal isn't to win a scoreboard, it's to make basic actions, paying, swapping, settling, feel as quick and inexpensive as sending a message. If you've ever waited minutes for confirmation or paid a fee that felt insulting, you know why this matters. Consensus also shapes who can trust the system. Cronos uses a proof of authority model layered on Comet BFT from the Cosmos family. Validators are vetted for reliability and security. That's a trade-off. Fewer unknowns, more performance, and clear accountability, aimed at institutions that need predictability and compliance. For everyday users, the benefit is simple. When you press confirm, you shouldn't be left guessing. Reach is the other half of real adoption. Cronos works closely with crypto. which brings 150 M+ users, global regulatory experience, payment rails, crypto, Pay, and an exchange with serious capacity. That distribution matters. A good network without users is a ghost town. A good network with users is an economy. Cronos is also thinking ahead about AI-native finance. The Cronos AI SDK is designed so agents can interact with DeFi directly, read instructions in natural language, execute tasks on-chain, and do it with identity standards that help keep things compliant. Picture an AI assistant that can rebalance a portfolio, route a payment, or provide liquidity, without you writing code or juggling 6 dashboards. That's not science fiction anymore, it's product design. For builders, there's fuel. Cronos Labs and a $100 million ecosystem fund supporting infra, tools, education, and grants. For institutions, there's a path to tokenized markets and even CRO-powered financial instruments that connect public markets and on-chain activity. For the wider ecosystem, there's a roadmap focused on throughput, with upgrades like Block STM and MEM-IVL, security, and better bridges. Because none of this works if moving between chains is clunky or unsafe. But this isn't only a tech story, it's a human story. If we get on-chain finance right, a small business can accept global payments without punishing fees. A saver can access better yields with clear controls, and a worker can send money home quickly and cheaply. If we get it wrong, we end up with the same old barriers, just with shinier logos. Cronos is staking a bold claim: to be the practical backbone for the golden age of on-chain dominance. Not by hype, but by reliable performance, real-world reach, and a builder-first approach that meets institutions and users where they are. In this video, we'll unpack how that works in real life. We'll start with the origin and vision, why Cronos exists and what problem it's built to solve. Then dig into the technology, adoption channels, trade-offs, and risks. And finally, where this could go as AI, compliance, and tokenized assets move center stage. Because the question isn't will finance go on-chain? It's how and who will make it usable for everyone. Every big shift starts with a simple question: what's missing? In Web 2, the cloud answered that question for the internet. It made scale, speed, and reliability normal. In Web 3, Cronos asks the same question of finance: What would it take to make on-chain markets open, safe, fast, and usable by billions? Not just by insiders or early adopters. Cronos was built with a clear mission: create the DeFi infrastructure for open, compliant, AI-accessible markets. That sounds ambitious, but the idea is practical. If real people, real businesses, and even AI agents are going to use on-chain finance every day, the base layer must feel boring in the best way. Predictable, fast, and affordable. No drama, no guesswork, just tools that work. The vision begins with access. Traditional finance keeps many people out with fees, delays, and geography. Early crypto, meanwhile, often felt like a maze. Fragmented chains, clunky bridges, and high costs during peak times. Cronos aims to remove those frictions by blending two worlds: the Ethereum Virtual Machine, EVM for developer familiarity, and the Cosmos SDK plus IBC for seamless cross-chain movement. In plain English, build where devs already know how to code, and make it easy for assets to move between ecosystems. But access without assurance doesn't scale. Institutions need clear rules and reliability. Users want to know their transaction won't hang in limbo. So Cronos orients its design toward instant finality, low latency, and throughput that feels like modern apps. Sub-second blocks, high transactions per second, and fees under a cent. It's not speed for the scoreboard. It's speed so a payment, a trade, or a settlement feels normal. That's how you earn trust. There's also the matter of compliance. On-chain won't go mainstream if it ignores regulations. Cronos leans into this reality. It supports a proof of authority model with vetted validators for performance and accountability, and it invests in standards like proof of identity so wallets and AI agents can attest who they are without handing over control. The goal isn't surveillance, it's creating a path where institutions, fintechs, and everyday users can participate with confidence. Distribution is the other pillar. Technology without users is a ghost town. Cronos' strategic alliance with crypto. COM brings global reach, payment rails, an exchange, and access to 150 M plus users. That matters for creators, merchants, and developers who need discovery, liquidity, and real demand from day one. If you're building a product, you want people to find it. If you're using an app, you want counterparties on the other side. Network effects aren't a nice to have, they're survival. Then comes the forward-leaning part of the vision: AI-native finance. Cronos doesn't just tolerate agents, it plans for them. The AI SDK is designed so agents can read natural language, invoke on-chain actions, and operate safely alongside humans. Think of agents that can route payments, manage liquidity, or check compliance rules in seconds. Not as a science project, but as a normal feature of everyday finance. Finally, the vision includes fuel for builders: Cronos Labs, ecosystem grants, and tooling from day one. You don't grow an economy by waiting. You grow it by funding infrastructure, education, and integrations that lower the cost of building. If a developer can ship faster with familiar tools and clear distribution, more useful apps appear. More apps bring more users and the flywheel turns. So Cronos' origin isn't just a new chain, it's a stance. Open markets that work at human and machine speed with the guardrails required for the real world. The promise is simple: make the on-chain rails sturdy enough that people stop noticing the rails and focus on what they're building and doing. But vision is only as strong as the architecture behind it. How does Cronos actually achieve this blend of speed, interoperability, compliance, and AI readiness in practice? It's one thing to dream of open, compliant markets for billions. It's another to build the rails that actually make it possible. Cronos architecture is where that vision takes form. A mix of proven foundations and forward-leaning choices that try to balance speed, scale, and trust. Cronos is an EVM-compatible blockchain. That means developers who already know Ethereum's tools, Solidity, Hardhat, Truffle, OpenZeppelin, can bring their apps over without reinventing the wheel. This compatibility lowers the barrier to entry. A DeFi protocol, NFT marketplace, or AI-driven DApp can port to Cronos quickly and tap into the ecosystem without months of redevelopment. It's a practical design choice. Don't fight developer habits, extend them. But Cronos isn't just another EVM chain. It's built on the Cosmos SDK and connected through IBC, inter-blockchain communication. In practice, this means Cronos can talk to other Cosmos chains while also staying linked to Ethereum's massive ecosystem. Tokens, data, and even smart contract calls can flow between ecosystems that used to be walled off. It's like building a financial hub at the crossroads of two highways, Ethereum's liquidity and Cosmos's interoperability. Performance is another anchor. Cronos aims for 60,000 transactions per second, 500 millimeters block times, and instant finality. In human terms, that's speed you don't have to think about. Pay for something, swap assets, or execute a contract. It confirms right away. No waiting for 6 confirmations, no refreshing the screen, no pending anxiety. For users, that feels normal. For institutions, it's a requirement. You can't build tokenized markets if settlement is slow or uncertain. Fees matter too. Cronos keeps them with a dynamic model inspired by Ethereum's EIP 1559. Fees rise when demand spikes and fall when there's room, but they stay predictable. That predictability is important. If you've ever tried sending money on a congested network and been hit with a surprise $30 fee, you know how quickly trust evaporates. Cronos wants to take that pain point off the table. Consensus is handled through proof of authority, layered on Comet BFT. Validators are vetted for reliability, security, and performance. That's a trade-off. Less decentralization than proof of work or large-scale proof of stake, but more accountability and speed. For institutions, it's a feature, not a bug. They need validators who won't disappear, and they need regulators to see a chain that takes governance and uptime seriously. For users, the benefit is simple. Blocks keep producing, and the network doesn't stall. Beyond raw infrastructure, Cronos has added AI-native primitives. The Cronos AI SDK fuses large language models with blockchain functions, letting AI agents parse instructions in plain English and execute on-chain actions. Combined with proof of identity, these tools aim to make AI-driven finance both usable and compliant. Picture an agent that can rebalance liquidity pools or trigger payments with identity attestation baked in. That's not just convenience. It's a pathway to scaling participation far beyond human-only interactions. Security rounds out the architecture. Cronos uses hardened validator practices, Byzantine fault tolerance from Comet BFT, and audit-backed modules to keep the chain resilient. Features like Block STM and MEMI-AVL improve parallel transaction execution and state management, cutting block latency and restore times dramatically. These aren't buzzwords. They're the invisible optimizations that keep a system stable when demand spikes. In short, Cronos' design is about blending worlds. Ethereum's familiarity, Cosmos' interoperability, enterprise-grade performance, and AI readiness. It's less about a flashy single feature and more about the sum of its parts. Rails that feel fast, safe, and simple enough to fade into the background while people and institutions get on with the business of finance. But technology alone doesn't guarantee success. The question is, are people and businesses actually using it? Has Cronos moved beyond architecture into adoption? No matter how powerful the technology, a blockchain lives or dies by adoption. The question isn't just, can it work, but are people actually using it? For Cronos, adoption has been one of its strongest signals, not only because of its tech stack, but because of the ecosystem and partnerships wrapped around it. The first pillar is crypto. Commerce with over 150 million users worldwide, crypto. Com provides a direct on-ramp for people into the Cronos ecosystem. That reach is rare in crypto. Most blockchains launch first and then scramble to attract users. Cronos began with a built-in highway, exchange rails, payment services, and wallets tied to a globally recognized brand. That meant adoption wasn't just theoretical. Apps and developers building on Cronos had instant exposure to a massive audience. Take crypto. ComPay as an example, it already connects to millions of merchants and supports dozens of currencies. By integrating with Cronos, those transactions can move on-chain quickly and cheaply. For a business owner, this means lower fees and new customer segments. For a user, it means paying in crypto feels just as smooth as tapping a card. Then there's DeFi. Cronos has positioned itself as a liquidity powerhouse thanks to its interoperability. Developers can tap into Ethereum's deep liquidity pools and connect seamlessly to Cosmos chains through IBC. That access is a big deal. Imagine building a DeFi app and being able to pull liquidity not just from your own network, but from two of the largest ecosystems in crypto. That's fuel for growth. Adoption also extends into AI-native finance. With its AI SDK and proof of identity, Cronos is opening doors for agents to participate alongside humans. This isn't just theory. It sets the stage for use cases like automated compliance checks, AI-driven portfolio rebalancing, and smarter execution of trades and lending. If AI is going to interact with money, it needs rails designed for that future. Cronos is explicitly building them. On the institutional side, Cronos has pursued partnerships to push adoption through traditional markets. The push for CRO-powered ETFs and collaborations with firms like 21 Shares and Canary Capital aim to bring the CRO token into mainstream investment products. ETFs for Bitcoin and Ethereum already manage tens of billions in assets. By riding that momentum, Cronos positions CRO as part of the next wave of accessible, regulated digital asset instruments. The ecosystem isn't just about finance, though. With Cronos Play, the chain has built tools for GameFi and entertainment. Developers can integrate with engines like Unity and Unreal, making it easier to create Web3 games that actually reach mainstream players. Combined with crypto, Com's user base, this opens the door to adoption well beyond traders or institutions. Support for builders is also adoption in disguise. Through Cronos Labs and its 100 MW ecosystem fund, Cronos has seeded startups, funded developer tools, and grown infrastructure like analytics, wallets, and oracles. These are the behind-the-scenes pieces that make an ecosystem livable. Without them, adoption stalls. With them, the chain gains momentum. All of this paints a picture of a chain that isn't waiting for adoption to happen. It's engineering it through reach, funding, partnerships, and tools. But adoption doesn't erase challenges. Cronos, like any ambitious project, faces hurdles that test whether it can maintain trust, scale responsibly, and stand out in a crowded market. Every bold project faces friction. For Cronos, the challenges aren't just technical. They're about perception, positioning, and the reality of competing in one of the most crowded industries on the planet. The first challenge is identity. Cronos was born out of crypto. Com and that partnership is both its strength and its shadow. On one hand, crypto. Com gives Cronos unparalleled reach and trust. On the other hand, critics argue that Cronos feels too closely tied to a single company, raising questions about decentralization. Is it an ecosystem for everyone or an extension of a brand? That perception matters, especially to institutions that value independence. Then there's the consensus model. Cronos uses proof of authority with vetted validators. This design delivers speed and predictability, instant finality, high throughput, but at the cost of decentralization. For users steeped in the ethos of open, permissionless networks, PoA feels like a compromise. It's less anyone can join, and more only the trusted few. For enterprises, that's often acceptable. For crypto purists, it's a red flag. Navigating that balance is tricky. Competition is another major pressure point. High-throughput chains are not rare anymore. Solana, Avalanche, Polygon, and others all claim low fees and fast transactions. Interoperability is becoming table stakes, not a differentiator. Even AI integration, which Cronos is leaning into, will attract rivals. The question is whether Cronos can differentiate not just on features, but on execution, reliability, and trust. Adoption at scale also brings regulatory scrutiny. By tying itself closely to compliance and identity standards, Cronos positions itself as institution-friendly. But that also invites questions. How do you balance openness with regulation? How do you ensure privacy while meeting compliance needs? These aren't just technical puzzles. They're political and social ones. Cronos will need to keep proving that it can satisfy regulators without alienating developers and users who value autonomy. Then there's the matter of market cycles. In crypto, hype comes and goes. New projects emerge, grab headlines, and fade. Cronos has to show it can endure beyond cycles, not just ride them. Building during a bear market, delivering upgrades on time, and keeping its ecosystem alive when attention shifts elsewhere. Those are the true tests of staying power. Some critics also raise concerns about centralization of reach. Cronos' adoption strategy leans heavily on crypto, Com's user base. While that's a huge advantage, it also creates a dependency. What happens if crypto, Com loses momentum, faces regulatory issues, or shifts strategy? Cronos will need to show it can grow its ecosystem independently, not just as an appendage of its partner. Finally, there's the challenge of expectation. When you brand yourself as the infrastructure for the golden age of on-chain dominance, you set the bar sky high. Every outage, delay, or weakness will be magnified. People will hold Cronos to the standard it has set for itself. And while ambition inspires, it also raises the stakes for every misstep. Still, challenges can also be catalysts. By facing questions of identity, decentralization, and competition head-on, Cronos has a chance to carve a unique position. Fast enough for institutions, open enough for developers, compliant enough for regulators, and user-friendly enough for the masses. But the big question remains, where does Cronos go from here? What's the future it's building toward, and can it really deliver the backbone for the next era of finance? Talking about the future of Cronos means talking about where finance itself is heading. The world is shifting toward tokenization of assets, of markets, of identity. And Cronos is betting that the next decade won't just be about humans interacting with blockchains, but also about AI agents, institutions, and everyday users sharing the same rails. One clear part of the future is AI-native finance. With the AI SDK, Cronos envisions agents acting like financial co-pilots, interpreting natural language, executing complex DeFi tasks, and even handling compliance checks. Imagine an AI that rebalances your portfolio, routes a cross-border payment, and verifies counterparties instantly. If agents become part of the economy, they'll need rails designed for them. Cronos is one of the few chains building with that future explicitly in mind. The second piece is institutional adoption. Traditional finance is slowly waking up to tokenized markets, from ETFs for Bitcoin and Ethereum to experiments with tokenized bonds and treasuries. Cronos is positioning CRO to play a role here, with CRO-powered ETFs and support for digital asset treasury companies that integrate crypto into mainstream financial strategies. If institutions want a chain that blends speed, compliance, and global reach, Cronos wants to be their first call. On the technical roadmap, Cronos is pushing upgrades like Block STM for parallel transaction execution and MEM-IAVL for faster state management. These aren't flashy terms, but they matter. They mean Cronos can handle higher loads without slowing down, and developers can build apps without worrying about bottlenecks. The focus is clear. Keep the rails strong so the apps and markets built on top don't break under pressure. Interoperability will also define the future. With Cosmos IBC evolving, Cronos plans to expand bridges and liquidity routing. The vision is that assets shouldn't feel stuck anywhere. Moving tokens, data, or even smart contract calls across ecosystems should be seamless. If the Internet of Money is going to work, chains need to talk to each other. Cronos is already positioned as a hub between Ethereum and Cosmos, and the roadmap suggests even broader connections ahead. But perhaps the most important piece of the future is scale of adoption. Through crypto, Com's 150M plus users, merchant networks, and global compliance licenses, Cronos has a path to reach people far beyond the crypto niche. The promise is that trading, lending, paying, and staking won't just be for early adopters, they'll be part of daily financial life for millions. If Cronos succeeds here, it will have delivered on its mission to make on-chain finance usable at scale. Of course, the future isn't guaranteed. Cronos will need to keep proving that it can balance speed with decentralization, compliance with openness, and ambition with execution. The competition will only get tougher. But if Cronos can stay steady, its future may not be about being the loudest chain in the room, but about being the backbone others quietly rely on. And that sets us up for the final reflection. What does Cronos mean, not just for developers or institutions, but for people looking for a fairer, faster, more open financial system? When we look at Cronos, what stands out isn't just the technology or the partnerships. It's the attempt to answer a question that has been building for decades. How do we make finance open, fast, and usable by everyone? Money has always been about access. Who gets to use it freely, who has to pay for the privilege, and who gets left out? For centuries, institutions have decided those boundaries. Crypto challenged that by making money borderless and programmable. But the early versions often came with trade-offs: slow speeds, high fees, clunky user experiences. Cronos steps into that gap with a bold promise: rails that work at human and machine speed, with compliance and scale built in from the ground up. Think about what this really means. A small shop owner in Asia being paid instantly by a customer in Europe. A migrant worker sending money home without losing a week's wages to fees. An institution launching tokenized assets with the same confidence they expect from traditional systems. Or even an AI assistant managing a portfolio, routing trades, and checking compliance, all in real time. These aren't distant hypotheticals, they're the kinds of everyday use cases Cronos is designed to make possible. The story of Cronos is also about blending worlds: Ethereum and Cosmos, humans and AI, retail and institutions, compliance and openness. Too often, these worlds have been treated as separate or even opposed. Cronos' vision is that they can and must coexist if on-chain finance is going to reach billions. That's why it chose EVM compatibility for developer familiarity, Cosmos SDK and IBC for interoperability, proof of authority for speed and reliability, and deep integration with crypto, COM for reach and trust. But what makes Cronos stand out isn't just design choices. It's the fact that it's trying to build infrastructure that fades into the background. The goal is not for people to notice Cronos every time they use it. The goal is for payments, trades, and transactions to just work, as naturally as sending a text or streaming a video. That's what real infrastructure does. It becomes invisible because it's reliable. And yet, the challenges remain. Questions about decentralization, competition from other high-speed chains, and the constant pressure to balance compliance with openness will not go away. Cronos will have to keep proving that it can be both trustworthy and adaptable, that it can serve institutions without locking out individuals, that it can power AI-driven finance without losing sight of human needs. If it succeeds, Cronos may not just be another blockchain. It may become the backbone of tokenized markets, the rails that institutions, developers, and everyday users rely on without needing to think twice. A user empowered to participate in finance who never had the chance before. So what does Cronos mean for us? It's a reminder that the future of finance won't just be about speed or scale. It will be about trust, accessibility, and usability at every level. And whether you're a developer, an investor, or just someone trying to make ends meet, those values matter. Cronos calls this the golden age of on-chain dominance. But maybe it's something even simpler. Maybe it's about making finance work in a way that feels less like a privilege and more like a basic right. A system where humans and machines, big players and small ones, can all share the same rails. And if Cronos can deliver on that, it won't just be another blockchain story. It will be part of a larger human story. The story of how we reimagined money to be faster, fairer, and more open for everyone.